your brain will not know the difference. And that's guaranteed, or your money back.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to VHS. I'm your host, Jesse, and today we're taking a look back at a movie I absolutely should not have seen when I was 8 years old. Good job, Dad. It's Total Recall. Are Johnny Cabs still chattier than Uber drivers? Is Sharon Stone gonna have to kick a bitch? And most importantly, is Total Recall still worth a watch today? Well, let's find out. It's the Hollywood Holdup featuring Total Recall. Couple items before we get started. If you enjoy the video, please make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. We just crossed 1,000 subs, and it's only up from here. Come on with us. Also, this is your friendly neighborhood spoiler warning. There's no way to talk about Total Recall without spoiling it, so hang on to your butts. Finally, everyone say hello to producer Craig, who has been working on our last video for
2 weeks.
What was that?
2 weeks.
I'm sorry, how long? Forget it, it's fine. It's fine. And now, the movie in a minute. We open on Doug Quaid having a dream. Yeah, just a dream. Doug's bored with his life, so he goes to Recall, a company that will implant the memory of an exciting vacation in your mind so you don't actually have to go. The implant goes badly. And one of two things happens here, and we'll get into it, but Doug either does or does not get tossed out of Recall and into a terrifying new world where people want to kill him all of a sudden. Doug gets help removing a tracking bug that may or may not have been in his skull this whole time, and we're off to Mars to find out if we're still Doug or if we're now a bad dude named Hauser. Listen, man, this whole thing's gonna get too squirrely for a minute-long recap, so suffice it to say, Doug/Hauser gets the girl and brings oxygen to the surface of Mars to save the day because he really is a double agent badass type person. Maybe. Now on to the categories. Category 1, Blue Sky on Mars. So what do you think? Did Quaid actually make it out of Recall and go to Mars? Or did he end up going brain dead in the chair? It's the central mystery that makes Total Recall far more fascinating than the average sci-fi bloodbath of the day. So let's take a look at just a few moments from the movie that give us a little hint one way or the other and see if we can't suss it out for ourselves. Waking up. Okay, in this opening scene where they're waking up after the dream, Sharon Stone's character uses her jealousy here to make Doug further commit to her. Maybe she's just jealous. But it could also imply that she's really a plant that's trying to monitor and control Doug. By making him profess his love, it reinforces those controls. This would suggest that Total Recall is not a fantasy and Doug really is being monitored and controlled by people. No bug on the X-ray scanner. Okay, this thing clearly has metal parts, but it's never seen on the X-ray scanner, which could imply that this whole story is a fantasy and the bug never actually existed. But personally, I think this is more about Paul Verhoeven wanting to use the skeleton animation in this sequence. You gotta imagine at this point in the 80s, this is fairly advanced, expensive stuff. So if someone brought up the issue of the bug not existing on the X-ray, not being seen on the X-ray, I should say, I can imagine him rationalizing it away so he could keep his cool X-ray sequence. Blue Sky on Mars. Blue Sky on Mars is the name of the memory implant they're giving to Doug. Bringing the air, and thus a blue sky to Mars, is essentially the plot of the movie once Doug gets to Mars. This would imply that the blue sky on Mars is preordained by the implant, which implies it's a fantasy. Picking the fantasy girl. Okay, there's two parts to this. Doug says his ideal woman is a brunette, but his wife, Sharon Stone, is blonde. This implies reality. Doug's memory has been blocked, and his blonde wife is a plant, not someone he would have chosen, like a brunette, which is actually his type. The second piece is that the fully visualized ideal woman is literally Melina. It's the same actress. This heavily implies fantasy. How could the computer show him exactly the woman he was going to go meet for the first time on Mars? Even if she's a real person, how could she have ended up in this amalgam, creating people out of nothing, just taking your thoughts and a pump out a woman on a computer? How could she be really there on Mars? In fact, this is the main pillar of the fantasy argument. Without it, the movie would almost certainly be read as reality only with just twinges of dream stuff mixed in. The Doctor and the Wife. Okay, now the Doctor and the Wife is the scene where I believe the filmmakers are just showing their cards and saying, okay, we've had our fun, but this is all really happening. Because while the Doctor is pretending to be in Quaid's mind, Quaid notices the Doctor is sweating. An illusion or an implanted virtual character would not be sweating, so Quaid understands this is real life. So my verdict is in line with Quaid. This movie is in fact really happening. The Mars adventure is real, okay? Even though I want it to be the fantasy angle, ultimately I have to take the side that the filmmakers were playing both sides here to take advantage of the memory motifs and keep the audience off balance. And it clearly worked. Audiences are still mesmerized by this movie, and it's because of this superb ambiguity. So what about the picture of Melina then? I'd be willing to bet there were some discussions about if this would cross the line from playing with the fantasy side to directly implying it. Which it does. It concretely implies that from the moment Arnold wakes up in the chair, we are in a fantasy implant world. I would further suggest that the studio knew this crossed the line because they retconned it in the novelization. You see, kids, they used to make novel versions of popular movies and sell them in these things called bookstores. And I think people read them. I never understood it. There's one scene in the novelization where Quaid asks Melina if she's ever heard of a company called Recall. And Melina says, I used to model for them. Why? Woof, that's some thin string you're using to sew that plot hole shut. So the TLDR is the story is actually happening. Quaid actually goes to Mars, and all the implications that he is in fact stuck in his fantasy are just there to keep the audience guessing and speculating, which is a wonderful magic trick, wouldn't you say? All they had to do was insert that picture of Melina and directly mislead us. Let me know in the comments where you guys land on this. And just remember, I wish the dream sequence was the idea. I think that's the better idea. I just think the filmmakers actually meant the story to be really occurring to Quaid/Hauser. Category 2. Ironclad. Michael Ironside is a legend. This dude is one of the coolest, scariest, gnarliest character actors from an era where I was watching basically every movie that came out. For the uninitiated, we at VHS are here to recommend 3 more Michael Ironside performances that you may not even remember or may have never seen. So let's get at it. Number 3, Top Gun. Did you forget that Michael Ironside is Jester in Top Gun? He's so cool in Top Gun. That training sequence where he smokes everybody, and the way he comes around to respecting Maverick by the end, he does most of it with his eyes. He's awesome. Number 2, Scanners. I'm still afraid of Michael Ironside because of this early sequence in Scanners. I'm gonna cut it off before, whoa, let's stop right there. Okay. Ironside has the perfect look for this unnerving thriller, and I have got to look away. Number 1, Starship Troopers. Michael Ironside is this movie. The kids are good, the aliens are scary and awesome, but Michael Ironside is the through-line metaphor character in this movie. Starting as the cantankerous teacher who lost his arm in the war until the war effort needs him again, and he returns as our main unit's commander.
I only have one rule. Everyone fights, no one quits. You don't do your job, I'll shoot you.
Starship Troopers ain't happening without this man and this face. Category 3, Mom and Pop Memory Shop. While the Mars double agent memory wipe story is intricately plotted and deftly executed, we can't really say that about all aspects of this script. By way of example, let me ask you a question. Is Recall a mom and pop shop? Are these literally all the employees? They've got Subway ads.
For the memory of a lifetime, recall, recall, recall.
Construction bros / secret bad guys are singing the jingle.
Recall, recall, recall!
Not correctly. So you'd think this company would be somewhere on the magnitude of a national chain of dialysis clinics. Or at least a mid-sized gym like Curves. But listen to how the boss man wants to cover up this Quaid fiasco.
I'm gonna destroy his file and refund his money.
I'm sorry, he's gonna refund Doug's money and that's gonna fix this? Does this company not have a board of directors or accountants or anything? What does he mean he's gonna refund Quaid? Is he the salesman and the accountant? Their bank is going to have a record of this. What? Boy, this story is really not about how businesses actually work, which would imply fantasy. Also, quick shout out to Ernie, who takes a slap for suggesting Doug's memory wipe was done by the
Agency.
Yeah. Does he mean the CIA, or is this a reference to some future-y government cadre? Either way, he's wrong. It's not the
Agency.
whoever the hell they are. So he takes a slap for absolutely no reason here. Then he's given the totally unrealistic task of,
Ernie, dump him in a cab. Around the corner. Tiffany, you help him.
hey, Ernie, one more thing before you go dump Quaid in that cab out back. Would you do me a favor and maybe take off the lab coat? See, it's got a big recall brand on it right there. And I understand you're going to dump him in a cab outside a building that also probably has a large recall neon sign on it. But we're trying to do what we can to cut down people's idea that we may have fried someone's brain. Again. Thanks, Ern. It's amazing how we're never held accountable, sir. It really is, Ernie. It really is. The verdict. So does Total Recall hold up to a modern viewing? It absolutely does. This is one of the easiest calls I've ever had to make. Total Recall will mesmerize new viewers just as it did in 1990. For returners like me, this movie is endlessly fascinating, with all the dream fantasy implications, the wild 80s aesthetic and design, the wanton violence, and way too many boobs. Watch this movie if you haven't, or haven't in a while. Show it to someone who missed it, or a teenager who can handle the violence and eye bulgy stuff, you know what I mean. They'll love this movie. It's scary, it's goofy, it's exhilarating. Too many boobs, I think I mentioned. Also, is this Mount Rushmore for Arnold? Just kind of having that thought without checking the IMDb. Is that a hot take? Total Recall Mount Rushmore for Arnold? Feels right. And there you have it. It's the Hollywood Holdup featuring Total Recall. You know, I often make jokes about showing movies to kids before they're ready and scaring them, giving them nightmares, all that stuff. And a lot of times I mean it. It's okay. They're going to be fine. But this is one I'm saying do not do that with. Do not do that. I saw this, like I mentioned up top, when I was 8 years old, and I truly was not ready to handle it. And I'm not talking about the boobs. So thanks for joining us. We continue on into the future here in Season 3, and we hope you'll join us. Until next time, we live here, only on VHS. Take 'em home, Craig.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Oh, and please like and subscribe. Check out more of our videos. Leave a comment. Or don't. You do you.